let's look at outgoing Q&A host Stan Grant and his emotional farewell last night on the ABC.
Too often, we are the poison in the bloodstream of our society. I fear the media does not have the love or the language to speak to the gentle spirits of our land. I'm not walking away for a while because of racism. We get that far too often. I'm not walking away because of social media hatred. I need a break from the media. I feel like I'm part of the problem, and I need to ask myself how or if we can do it better.
Look, there's one issue of racist attacks, and this is, of course, unacceptable and unforgivable. There's also the issue of how the ABC has actually fueled this problem by its poor programming decisions when it chose to schedule a highly political panel on Coronation Night, and this has led to over 1,000 viewer complaints. I think 1,700 was the last I read. ABC management repeatedly failed to protect Stan Grant from racism. It took over a week for the ABC's head of news, Justin Stevens, to finally say something, and when he did, he just tried to shift the blame onto News Corp.
What we've got now is sections of the media, particularly in News Limited, who will do anything they can to campaign against the ABC. Now, we can't be beyond scrutiny. In fact, we welcome it. But it is clearly a concerted campaign to chip away at the ABC and people's sense of trust in it by them.
Look, no one is buying his absurd claim that it's News Corp's fault. The executive chairman of News Corp Australasia, Michael Miller, has said that the ABC needs to stop passing the buck and blaming others for its own internal problems. He said Justin Stevens has made a raft of unsubstantiated claims about News Corp's reporting of how the ABC covered the coronation. Well, let's get straight into this with my panel, Sky News host every night at 9 p.m, Paul Murray, and Sky News host Liz Storer every night at 10:30 p.m. I watch you both every single evening from bed.
We're here there all the way through.
Thank you. Hi, friends.
Now, Paul, look, obviously we, abhor racism.
All the obvious stuff is said.
But how can the head of the ABC come out and try blame News Corp when this Coronation Night panel, as the Australian newspaper reports today, has drawn more than 1,700 complaints, and the Australian reports that no other television program in the history of the ABC has attracted more viewer complaints than the coronation coverage. This is the ABC's poor programming that has sparked this whole issue.
When all else fails, blame News Corp. When all else fails, change the subject to sort of the Batman and Robin of it all, and depending on which side you're on is the good guy versus the bad guy. I think two quick things I wanted to say. I'll say a bit more about this at 9 o'clock. But watching Stan's comments at the end of his show on a big screen, you could see a tear in his eye, a shake in his hand, and you could hear the thumping in his heart, that he's not in a good place. I want him to get better, and I know what it's like as somebody who has an opinion, like we all do, that sometimes you feel like you walk into every room and everyone's pointing at you and saying something behind your back. The problem here is, show me the receipts of what the racist coverage was in and around criticism of the ABC's decisions or what Stan had to say.
Well, there was none. There was no racist coverage.
Correct. I don't believe any of that stuff actually exists. And the problem is that I think that, again, one of the best things that have been written or said in all of this in the past couple of weeks was Stuart Littlemore and David Salter. They used to run Media Watch for a long time, and they say one of the central problems with the ABC is that they have people who are the straight news people who also then turn around and give comment. Pick a lane.
Yeah, I mean, there's also been, Stan Grant has made the point that no one at the ABC even reached out to him after this, Liz. So, the ABC is not really owning its own problems here.
Well, on the one hand, we've got Justin there who, over that 18-minute interview, expressed regret that they hadn't done more to support Stan, etc. and so on, taking some of the responsibility, but in the same breath, blaming News Corp. And then we've got Stan saying it's actually not because of racism that I'm leaving. And I have to say that I was surprisingly refreshed by what he had to say in his farewell. I thought it was very balanced and measured, genuinely heartfelt. And I was glad to hear that he actually does acknowledge that he's been part of the problem. I have to quote this from his piece in The Australian on Tuesday, 23rd of May. He wrote, "Whiteness is not white people. I have to keep reminding myself of that. It is an organising principle. It is a way of ordering the world. It is an invention, an idea, a curse," end quote. If that's not one of the most racist things you've read recently, I want to know what you've been reading.
Well, at least,
and I think
at least
rhetoric,
controversial.
yeah, rhetoric
statement
like
to make.
that though does invite, because it is race-based, it does invite race-based feedback. So while we've yet to see any, to know that it actually happened, I'm sure it did.